Yay, just announced it. Hi, I'm Rhonda, and this is Kayla.
Hello.
And we're here for Tarot Delights. So we're here to talk about in our podcast, or our attempt at a podcast, about tarot. That's why it's called Tarot Delights, because we both love to read cards, to study cards, to do deep dives into tarot.
Yes, and it has multiple layers too, right? So like the one thing I love about tarot is that it has some amazing levels and layers to everything, because you can have what the original like blurb says about it, the little white book as it's called, but there are so many different layers as you get into it. I know you like to take an astrological lean sometimes.
Yeah, and a numerology lean as well.
Yep.
I'm a numbers girl.
And I am so not. So it's really interesting, and I go more the chakra side of things. So I know every tarot card has a chakra, and that's really interesting to add that layer to and see where people, like based on their card reading, see where their chakras are aligned and whether or not they need some unblocking or whatever.
Yeah, because what I love about tarot is when you decide to study tarot, and I highly recommend studying what each card means and learning that. I have a lot of videos up on my channel about that, because it's like learning a language, because then you can layer on top your intuitive or empathic or psychic gifts on top of that, as opposed to, oh, I just read the cards intuitively. It's always good to know the foundation, because when you start to learn tarot, you realize you have to agree to be a student for life.
It's very true.
Because there are so many things you can put into and layer on top of, like Kayla was saying, the chakras, and then I was mentioning numerology and astrology, and there's just so much that you can add on to tarot on top of your psychic or empathic or even mediumship gifts that you might naturally have. And you can also hone those gifts within tarot. That's the beauty of tarot. It allows so much growth. And it's a big, a great one for self-growth too, and self-reflection and exploration and stuff, especially with the major arcana, because we started last time we were here with the Fool, because that's who we all are. We're all the Fool, and we're about to take that big leap of faith into whatever our next step is. When you're studying and doing self-reflection, it's the next step into spiritual growth often, and emotional management, trauma, healing, all this kind of stuff can be done through tarot. And so today we're looking at the Magician. At least that's a bit of our focus. Now, you and I both know we go off on tangents.
That's the best part.
So you have a few magicians out here for us.
I find it really interesting because obviously there's two systems when it comes to tarot. There's the Thoth system, which I have not personally explored because it just didn't catch my fancy. And then the RWS, so the Rider-Waite-Smith version is very popular. And if you learn to read that one, you can basically read almost every tarot deck that has ever been created, both independent and mass market. So we have a very small variety of cards. I have a RWS clone done by Isabella Rothman. It's the This Might Hurt Tarot, and this is what the Magician looks like. So very traditional symbology, but still kind of updated artwork. Instead of just and then don't get me wrong, I love Smith's artwork. I just think it's interesting that people have taken the inspiration from her artwork and managed to turn it into something uniquely their own, yet still works in the system of the RWS.
Yeah, because all the things are there, the tools, and that's what the Magician is about. He's what we call our first teacher, because each of the major arcana are archetypes that we're supposed to, as the Fool, interact with, learn the lesson from, and move on into full enlightenment. Is the theory, is what we're supposed to be doing. Now, we don't do it all in one lifetime necessarily, but the Magician, like I said, is sort of considered our first teacher. So in the bag that the Fool is carrying, the hobo bag that he has often, these are the tools. So they're all the elements that the magician unpacks for us and shows us we have the tools already to move forward. And he helps to connect us to from high above our divinity to our earth-based, you know, organic meat bag that we're walking around in.
Oh my God, I love it. But it's so true. Like we're, you see every time, or I see a lot in like, you know, internet stuff. They're like, can you believe we're just a bunch of stardust and meat bag situations? And then you stop and think about that, and it's really profound.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because you know we're all machines, right? We're organic machines, but we're machines nevertheless, and we start to wear down, and you know we want to live forever. And I mean, we're at an age now where you can go in the hospital and just start replacing parts, you know, knees and hips, and you know,
It's true.
get a full oil change while you're in there, you know.
I love it. But it's true though. Like we've come a long way in so many situations where we can advance our age and become a little bit older, a little bit wiser with more years of experience. And yet tarot has been around for centuries and people still find its relevance today. That's a really lovely thing that I love about tarot. It's relatable and the relevance is there, and there's just so many intricate little things you can pick up.
Yeah. I mean, I think since the late 1800s, it's kind of become even more profoundly spiritual. And, you know, it's been used in psychology even for, especially the major arcana for the archetypes that we learn from. So the magician, I mean, the magician's had a bad rap sort of back in the olden days. He was about deceit and, you know, manipulation and things like that. And there is a dark side to every card, and that can be the dark side. Sometimes when it crops up, it's like, what are you missing? What aren't you seeing? What are you being deceived on? That sort of thing. But for the most part, I do tend to take the Pollyanna view of things, and I like the lighter side where it's like he's our teacher. I compare him to a piano teacher because we often want to learn and like really quick, right? We want to come into our first piano teacher and we want to be playing at Beethoven or Elton John's level, and it's like, no, everyone has to start out with scales and hot cross buns, and you'll play hot cross buns till you're sick of that song.
Sorry, I'm having flashbacks to grade school.
And most of us don't get past hot cross buns, to be honest. But we have to do those, and the magician is the one that reminds us you have to do all the steps in order to get higher. It's just keep going, keep playing the hot cross buns. And even if you pick it up as an adult, you know, it's okay. Start new.
Well, I find it interesting too that tarot is what you said about it picking up as an adult. Tarot is accessible. Like, like as long as you've reached if kids want to play with tarot, great, like that's their decisions. But I feel like once you're an adult, there's so many levels of understanding that kind of get brought out in the tarot, from the color of the cards and the symbology used, and it's very applicable, but also like it's not easy to learn because it's like a language, and sometimes languages are very hard. But it's accessible in the sense that it doesn't matter when you pick it up, it's still gonna relate and apply and be useful to you.
Absolutely, 100%. I love that. It's one of the few cards too. Does the traditional?
It does.
Have the infinity symbol. So does strength, and that's further down. But I love that those two cards are kind of connected because it's the magician that tells us you have the tools to keep moving, and once you do learn some lessons, you come out with this strength because you've disciplined yourself. And even though you can't always control the environment around you, that's okay, right? And it's very beautiful that this infinity symbol is here. Now this one is from the Light Seers, which is a very popular deck. At first, when I first started using this deck, I was sort of wondering how sugar-coated it's going to be, but it's not.
It threw me off the first time because I think I had picked it up too soon after learning the RWS.
Oh, okay.
So I hadn't cemented the original meanings. And then when you pick up, sometimes when you pick up clones, the meanings don't change, but the art does.
Right.
And it kind of skews your view of the cards and how it relates.
Yeah.
And it took me a good 6 months to wrap my head around the Light Seers deck. But no, it is beautiful. It's got some interesting duality into it. And I really love that it actually takes, I think there's a couple levels, like the first couple times I went through the deck, I didn't even notice the runes. So on certain cards, I won't even spoil that, because if you have the deck, you know. If you don't have the deck, keep watching. We'll get to it, and we'll tell you which ones have runes.
Yeah.
There's like so many layers to the deck.
Like, because he does have the light. It goes a little, like he's on the earth. So again, he's showing us to be grounded, but yet there's that divinity kind of thing. He doesn't have the tools traditionally speaking, but he does have the 4 sort of stardust beams, I guess.
Yep, I would classify that as stardust beams.
Of the elements, right? So each of the suits is what that is, because that's what he has traditionally here. Each of the suits: cups, wands, swords, and pentacles, or coins, as some people call it. And where's this guy from?
So this one is, so the third one we have here is the Chakra Healing Tarot, and it's done
Oh, I love the back.
by, I'm going to butcher your name and I apologize, Malamar Logan, and art is done by E.C. Mazur, and they're actually Canadian.
Ooh, there's the back of it.
Yeah,
Isn't that
it's
gorgeous?
That sold me, the back sold me right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they're
and
gorgeous.
this magician looks feminine, almost.
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all, like,
It could be either or,
yeah.
but she's got a bit more of a feminine feel to her, and she's got a couple of the chakras right
Yeah.
here that she's.
That's why I love this deck. It has the chakras already built in, so you don't have to
Yeah.
guess which ones they are.
And then she's got the traditional table with the 4 elements and the 4 tools that are in the hobo or in the fool's pack kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. The only thing she's missing here is the traditional roses and lilies. And the roses are feminine energy and the lilies are masculine energy. And the magician is all about that balance, right? Finding that balance. Like this one is connected to the earth, and then he brings us into the divinity, the universe, that sort of thing. He's the teacher that shows us how to manifest that spiritual growth into our lives. And, you know, the odd buck or two if you need it.
What we can do with a few more bucks.
Yeah, right?
I love going back to the infinity symbol. It just, you're right, that manifestation, that balance, and it really is equaled out in the cards in different ways. And I was just looking up, so I have a little index of like what the symbols mean in front of me, and I wanted to see if the symbols were represented different in the cards, and they're not. So what they say as the infinity symbol on the magician, it says the same thing on the strength card.
Okay.
So that it's like manifest movement and getting balance and equilibrium in your life and things like that. So I found that piece really interesting.
Cool.
Just because sometimes, depending on what symbols show up where, they can mean different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's kind of just like the standout that I found.
Anything else that you found about the... Now, I do like in the traditional, and in this one he is too, he's wearing red.
Yes.
And in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, he's got a red robe on. And red, of course, as we talked about, I think in the last episode, we talked about how red in the occult world is a symbol of knowledge, that you have achieved knowledge and you're very knowledgeable in whatever realm you're in or situation or area kind of thing. So you'll notice the red because it's there, especially on the RWS deck. It's there on purpose.
Yes. I've noticed that. And it also, energy, passion, love, but also revenge and rage. That's specifically mentioned. So I found that
Okay.
really interesting because red does mean a gamut of things depending on the context of which you put it. But I like your side, the whole like the knowledge and the power of things coming forth, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an excitable color. That's why the first McDonald's used it because it makes you excited. It also can make you hungry. That's why you never put red in your bedroom, because it'll make you either hungry or argumentative.
Well, there's a whole color theory, right? Like there's color magic, and I think that's something we'll dive further into.
Again, another layer.
Yes,
You can
another
add to tarot, right?
And this is why tarot appointments are like an hour long.
Yes, right.
Because there's so many layers depending on the situation that can come up in the cards.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it depends on, where the magician is positioned, like what cards are before him or after him. He can influence those cards, or maybe they have influence over him, kind of thing. But always pay attention when a major arcana comes up, especially if it's a repeated major arcana. So people often, I find, I don't know if you found this in your readings, when, let's say the magician comes up and they're like, oh, I always get the magician. When they say, oh, I always get the magician, I say, what aren't you listening to?
Well, isn't that with any card too, though? Because like,
any card.
I call them stalker cards. I know that's a possible negative connotation, but I don't use it as a negative connotation. I look at it as, okay, if this card is coming up, I'm clearly not hearing the message that it's trying to portray.
Yeah.
So then I kind of delve deep back into like the reflection part and go, okay, what situations has this card come up in? What is surrounding the cards? What am I thinking about when I'm having this reading? And what am I not paying attention to? So I try and take myself out of the like initial, what do the cards mean? And go, what am I not seeing? So it's like that you can't see the trees for the forest.
Yeah. You kind of have to back up because maybe you're lost in the details. And like I said, it could be any card. I mean, we just happen to be talking about the magician, but people say, oh, I always get the Tower, or I always get the Wheel of Fortune, or I always get this, I always get that. And if you're always getting it, that means tarot's like screaming at you going, please pay attention to this, because we're trying to tell you something. We're trying to help you. Help me help you, kind of thing.
You posted a meme the other day where it was like, my spirit guides looking at me and they're not paying. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what tarot does. Your spirit guides are like, hey, this is what we want you to see. And you're like, okay, la-di-da-di-da, I'm not going to pay attention. And the spirit guides are like, come on,
Yeah.
let's do this.
You came and asked for advice from tarot, and you completely ignored it if you're getting the same card over and over again. So it's like, start paying attention.
Well, I mean, we do that in life too.
Oh,
right?
of
like
course.
We'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, this decision is good for me, but I want to be over here and make the not so good decision or the wrong at the time decision.
Right.
And then you're like later you're like, why didn't I make the decision over in the right? Because that would have been the better one.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
hindsight's 20/20. I get that, and we go through experiences for a reason in life. And I feel like when we really pay attention, but we have to sit still and pay attention. Mm-hmm. I feel like, and I'm guilty of this.
And we have to respond as opposed to react.
Yes.
That's a big one for a lot of people,
I'm also really guilty for not sitting still.
Right. And taking a beat.
And taking a beat and going, okay, I need to do this. Like meditation. We did a lovely meditation last night. I felt amazing afterwards. And I'm like, I took 15, 20 minutes out of my day, and the benefits totally outweighed and slowed down my like monkey mind, in the sense that, everything's firing and you're thinking of 50 million things. And if we just slowed down and took a little bit of time out of our day for ourselves, I feel like your entire day is going to go a little different, and it's going to be in your benefit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And meditation, I think it was Waterloo University, don't write this in stone, they did a study on meditation, and they actually, one of the results was you don't have to do it for very long. In fact, 2, maybe 3 minutes tops is great. Anything longer than that and your mind starts to wander, because that's what our minds do. It's supposed to do that. So just taking those 2 or 3 minutes to mindfully breathe, to mindfully reflect, whatever it might be. I mean, the meditation last night was awesome. We did a dragon meditation.
So cool.
Yeah, it's cool. You're communing with dragons. How can that be bad?
Right?
And taking that, but also too, that was meditation mixed with visualization. So a lot of the guided meditations that you see on YouTube, great. They have their place and everything, but they're visualizations as opposed to true meditations. But we won't get into that. That's a tangent we can.
I was gonna say that is a whole podcast in and of itself.
Yes, exactly. But it is good. Like sometimes when these major arcana cards come up and it's something that you've seen a few times in a reading, it means it's time to take that beat and kind of stop and go, okay, what am I missing here? And just reflect, just for a few moments, right? And then you're putting yourself in a place of strength to make further decisions as opposed to going, oh my God, it's come up again. Oh, I better do this or I better do that. And running around like a chicken without its head, right? It's like,
Guilty.
yeah, I've been there too.
No, I don't know. There's just so many layers, and I look like tarot. You give it the power. You give it the power. It's a tool. Mm-hmm. You kind of assign the intention or power to it, and it just doesn't matter how long I play with it. It always marvels because I'll learn something. I'll be like, oh, that didn't go the same way I did before, and oh, that's new. Depending on like the configuration of cards, and it's almost mind blowing that because I've been doing this 6-ish years. I might be wrong.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Probably close to that.
And I still learn stuff.
Yeah. Oh, well, I've been doing it over 20 years and I still, every time I teach tarot, I learn something new, especially with the RWS system. And like I was talking about before, a lot of masters actually go back to the original RWS because we're over the artwork at that point and we just really want true tarot. And not that the other cards aren't true, they are. And I use the Gilded deck as my working deck. She's worked for me for a very long time and she's my go-to. I do occasionally use the Light Seers one as well. And I love my giant RWS because it's very dramatic, right? It's like, oh, here, do, kind of thing. And I also started out, you saw the deck, the Dark Grimoire.
Yes,
deck.
that is an interesting deck.
Very interesting deck. You can't be afraid of monsters in that deck because
No.
there's a lot of monsters in there, but there is a lot of light if you look for it.
I could see the duality. I see what you're saying because there's some cards I'm like, well, I don't want to meet that in a dark alley. But in that same card, if you look or even take a different perspective, depending on what cards are around it, there is a lot of light, and there is like you just got to kind of search a little more. Where RWS, there might be primarily you see light first, and then you kind of have to search for the shadow side. This deck, it's the opposite.
Yeah. It's almost dark all the way through with sort of glimmers of light. And if you're a book lover, there's lots of books in that deck too. Like the deck will just have pictures of books. And it's all about study. And I think it was the right one for me when I first started, because when you start out as a student, and I used to be an esthetician, so it's the same thing in every school. Like when I was an esthetician, the skincare products we were using, we couldn't get away from it faster. We wanted to buy our own line and blah, 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 right? And same thing I find with RWS and tarot. A lot of students are like, it's boring, I don't like it, I can't wait to get a more colorful deck or a better art deck or whatever, right? And they want to get away from RWS as fast as they can. But it's weird because like when I wanted to do that too when I first learned, because my teacher made me get the RWS deck. And then I got the Dark Grimoire, and I think because I was healing a lot and working my way through a lot of trauma, it was a very healing deck for me.
That's interesting.
Even though I was reading for other people, it's weird how it kind of bounces back on you a little bit. And a lot of people do ask, like, how does tarot know, right? Because these cards will come up, whatever they are, and people are like, oh my God, it's like, how did the tarot know to bring these cards? Well, really what you're doing is you're using biofeedback. Because there's a lot of divination systems that use that. The Ching, I think I'm pronouncing that right, is the same sort of pattern of the biofeedback and that sort of thing. And that's one of the most popular divination systems in the world. And tarot is right up there as well. And so it's not that tarot knows, like you said, it's a tool, but everything responds to our vibration.
your energetic field and things like that.
Yeah.
No, and I can definitely see that because the longer you kind of bond with a deck or use a deck, you'll start to learn its mannerisms. I'm not trying to like animate it, but it's feeding off of you, that biofeedback. So whichever way
Absolutely.
you want to look at it, it is correct. But because I've learned sometimes in the beginning when I'm starting to work with a deck, but I haven't bonded with it yet, sometimes the cards will come out and I'll be like, what are you trying to say here? And whatever, there's like some blockage and it's not coming to me, like mental blockage. And once I've kind of bonded with the deck and paired with it and I've used it maybe for a year or so, and then I can read it like a book.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting how that happens.
And speaking of that, you're talking about bonding with your deck. So when you get a new deck, I know it's very exciting and we want to get it out, we want to play with it, and we should, but you shouldn't really read with it at the start. She was talking about bonding and pairing with your deck. So you want to actually carry it, eat, sleep, and drink with it, I call it, for 21 days. Now you do want to get it out. You want to look at the cards, shuffle through each card, kind of do a, like, let's see what the cards look like, do a couple of those. Do what's called also an interview of your deck.
Oh, those are popular.
Yes. And you know, get to know, like, ask the questions of your deck. Who are you? You know, what do you like? You know, like, you know, what's your favorite color? You know, whatever.
How do you think we're gonna work together? I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's interesting what the answers are.
Yeah. So it's sort of like be polite and interview your deck. Don't just say, hey, you're mine now, let's get to work, kind of thing, right? It's like, let it kind of get to know you and you get to know it. And don't ask it very big probing questions at the start. It's sort of like dating, right? Like you're not sitting down on your first date and going, okay, so how many kids do you want when we get married? Like, it's like,
People do that
whoa.
though, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
No.
It's like, that's not a first date question. So don't do that with your tarot decks either. They will serve you well if you're polite and get to know them.
Oh man, I could feel that could be like a subtopic of things not to do with tarot.
Yeah, right? Oh my goodness. Yeah, so treat it like it does become an extension of you. Yes, it is a tool, but there is a bit of an energy that it sort of becomes of itself as well. And if you've done the bonding well enough, and I think I have a video up on my YouTube channel about how to bond
Pretty sure you do.
with your new tarot deck. I think I do. Say in the comments if I don't, and I will make one.
Yeah. Report back, please.
Exactly.
I've watched your videos so many times that I don't remember what you have.
And if you're out there and thinking, oh my God, I've been using this deck and I haven't bonded with it, I haven't done the eat, sleep, and drink with it thing, you can always start again. So you can smudge your deck or cleanse it in moonlight or incense. Don't wash it in water, obviously. But, you know, clear it, you know, give it a clearing, and then sort of apologize and say, I'm sorry. Let's get to know each other. You know, you're starting again kind of thing. Because, like, people come in to me all the time and bring decks and go, I just didn't connect with it. I'm like, why didn't you connect with it? Well, it just wasn't for me. Well, did you get to know it at all?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, there's almost no deck you can't connect with. I mean, I know there's a tarot decks for everything out there. There's a Golden Girls tarot deck. There's a baseball tarot deck. Like, I probably would not connect with the baseball tarot deck because
But somebody who loves baseball would.
Yeah,
right.
right.
Like that's what I love. Don't get me wrong. I feel like some people are like the industry is saturated and there's too many decks and da 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 da. No,
There's
every
a
tarot
lot.
deck there is totally a lot, but every tarot deck was made with a purpose, and that creator got that idea for a reason, and that deck is supposed to go into the lives of the people that it goes into.
Yes, yeah. And I do like that there is so much variety out there. Like I said, there's something for everyone out there. However, I really would love it if each creator was, you know, genuine. Because, I mean, there's a couple of decks out there that I love the artists that are the art part of that deck. Unfortunately, the decks are pip decks.
Oh my god, that's a whole other topic.
That's
Pip
a whole
decks.
other pip decks, okay?
I love art. And I, for the life of me, I need something. I need like a card that has meaning and substance. You can't just put 3 swords on a card and go, oh, here, it's the 3 of swords. I can't handle it.
Right, right. It does make it so that you really have to fall back on, okay, what does
Yeah.
this card mean in RWS? And I can do that if need be. I prefer not to, but these artists that I was talking about, it's like they've taken art that they've already done and tried to pigeonhole them into and force
Oh,
them
more
in.
the collage decks and stuff?
Well, there's a Victoria Francis is one of the artists. She's an amazing artist. Amazing. I love her art. But whoever created the deck took her art and just kind of crammed it into this is the magician, and it sort of fit but not really, because she wasn't making that art for
I see what
tarot.
you're saying.
She was just creating her beautiful art. And yeah, she has very gothic kind of looking art.
Well, I feel like in general, I'm trying to think of, so there's decks I have that I've connected with, and I feel like they're decks that the artist and the creator have worked really well together, and they've literally talked, and that artist created that image for the deck. So I understand what you're saying. If a creator
Nothing
takes
bad about Victoria Francis, by the way.
no, it doesn't.
It's a gorgeous deck for the art, but it's all art she's already done that she didn't do specifically for tarot.
Okay. And I think you're right. Like, there's that layer of connectedness with artists who talk to the creators, and they kind of do this collaborative process with making the deck. I'm thinking of Lisa Pepez's. She's got her deck up for pre-orders. It's like the Unicorn's Journey Tarot. I'll try to remember to link it in the comments. Amazing, and the artist she chose is fantastic, but they collaborated, and every image is a blend of Lisa's created an image in her head, and the artist, I'm gonna butcher her name, Francois, I apologize, I'll put it in the can't, yeah, brain's not braining today, but they've collaborated together, so like Lisa's creative image comes out to the cards, but Francesca, that's her name, Francesca's art has her, like, the artist's spin on it, but it's definitely made for tarot.
Nice.
So she didn't just take like some of Francesca's art that she did years ago and stuck it on a tarot deck.
Yeah.
It's purposely intended to be tarot art.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think now that we're talking about this, I really feel like I like, gravitate towards decks like that.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like learning the RWS system. And I know it's very daunting, you know, the 78 cards, I got to memorize, blah, blah, blah,
One
blah,
card
blah.
at a time.
But yeah, one card at a time, you know, and the more you do readings, the more you realize what these cards will mean. And don't be afraid to jump in the deep end. Because people are like, I'm not sure I'm ready to read other people. Oh, yes, you are. In fact, that's how you learn. And it's the fastest way to learn these cards. But what's really beautiful about learning the system and really understanding it is that when you get a new deck and it's maybe deviated in a couple of areas, then it's like, oh, where's the deviations? Okay, and because I like Gilded Deck deviates a little bit, and I can say, oh, well, this card means this in this deck. However, I think it's taking on the more traditional tarot meaning, and it means this in this particular reading, and it's very beneficial. I think that I can fall back on that and realize, and that's where I use my intuitive abilities in seeing, you know, which meaning is applying, right? So, you know, people that say they read intuitively, I hope that they will at least try to learn the RWS system, because that really ups your game as far as psychic and intuitive and empathic gifts that you can layer on top of knowledge. You know, knowledge and intuition and, you know, those sort of metaphysical kind of gifts really complement each other. But if you only have one that you're using, it's almost like, you know, yin and yang. You're just using the yin, but not the yang.
So it's not kind of blending together, and you're not getting the full message.
Yeah. Because I've had readings from readers that have just read intuitively and have not taken a lesson or anything like that. And usually they're way, way off on me anyways. That's just my
Well, that's interesting because, like, I've come across people that read intuitively. I don't know if I've had a reading, like, someone has read my cards intuitively in a very long time because I don't remember off the top of my head what the reading was about. But I don't understand why you wouldn't add another layer or tool to your arsenal and how you read.
Well, yeah, because I learned numerology because I realized there's a lot of numbers in tarot.
Oh, for sure.
And then, you know, like you're learning the chakras. I learned the chakras as well because you can apply that to tarot. You know, and I've learned astrology. I didn't start out going, I want to learn astrology. I started out saying, I want to learn tarot.
Yeah.
And then you learn all these other things. So you never stop growing and layering. So that's why, to me, when you just take one thing and you're just running with that only, because again, I said yin and yang earlier, but it's really a pie. And it's one of those magical pies. Like there's strawberry rhubarb, there's pumpkin pie, there's apple pie, maybe some banana cream, you know, and you have like, it's like, I can have all those slices, all those flavors. Yes, please.
Who would say no to an infinity flavored pie?
Exactly. Right.
Like, that would be amazing. Now I'm hungry.
I know. I'm like, I really want banana cream pie right now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And it's really interesting too, like how we started out with one topic, the musician.
Well, maybe he plays jazz on the side. Who
maybe.
knows?
Yeah. On the off days when he's not posing for the card, he's playing jazz down at the bar.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. But like we started out saying, hey, what can we say about the
The magician.
Haven't had enough coffee yet. And this has turned into a whole like other layer. And this is like, this podcast is an example of how you can layer things. Because
Right.
we've talked about astrology and numerology and other things and how the different elements of the card are accessed through the images and the colors and everything has meaning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's number one, right? Because the Fool is 0. He's number 1. So he's the ideas guy too, right? He gives us the idea that we can achieve, that we can manifest. Like I said earlier, he's our first teacher, and number 1 means something. Number 1 is the idea. Number 2 is the decision, which is what we're going to talk about in the next podcast with the High Priestess.
It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, I love the High Priestess.
She's got some really interesting art too, because traditionally versus some newer texts. Sorry, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes, but that's what's coming up in the next one. And we're hoping to do at least one a month.
Yes.
Maybe more because now summer's here, so we can kind of coordinate our schedules a little bit easier. But yeah, let us know in the comments, how often would you like to see one of these podcasts? Would you like to see it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, yearly?
Yearly. Oh my gosh. We're gonna die before we get through the deck.
Once a year.
Once a year. Think of how much information we could pack in, though.
Exactly, right? So if you're enjoying this podcast, please like and subscribe to our channel, Goddess Garage, and like this video. Ring the little fairy bell, as I call it, so you know when new podcasts are going up, whether it's usually about tarot, but I do other things as well. And I want to get better because I fell off the wagon there a little bit. So I want to thank Kayla for getting me back on YouTube.
We got this. I got tons of ideas. I just need the push to get them out there.
Yeah. So we're good at pushing each other. And yeah, we vibe really well too, I think.
Definitely. So we will see you in the next one. And thank you so much for hanging out.
Yes, thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, how do I end this?
Didn't we have this problem last time?
I think so.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
there we go.